Welcome to Daily English Flow. Stay until the end for a special bonus tip. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're decoding the exact listening strategies you need to break right through that intermediate plateau and finally unlock real-world English fluency. You know, if you've been putting in the hours but still feel like native speakers are talking 100 miles an hour, well, you're in the exact right place. Let's get into it.
So, have you ever felt totally stuck at what we call the intermediate plateau? It is a highly common and, frankly, incredibly frustrating experience. Think about it. You know enough vocabulary to survive, right? You can introduce yourself, order some food, maybe talk about your weekend. But the second you try to understand native speakers going at full speed, or you try to express a really complex opinion, your brain just freezes. It's like you know the words, but the whole structure just completely falls apart in real time.
Well, welcome to the B1 threshold. This is the exact point where English has to stop being just a basic survival tool and start becoming a language of true expression. We so often think of fluency as just speaking, but true expression actually starts with comprehension. Actively changing your listening habits right now is the secret catalyst for reaching upper intermediate fluency. Optimizing how you listen is literally the exact mechanism that builds that true, effortless fluency you're looking for. So to make this jump, we need a paradigm shift. We're moving from basic survival to full comprehension.
Back in the A1 and A2 survival mode days, you heavily relied on slow, super-articulated speech just to catch the basic facts. You were listening for times, prices, maybe some simple directions. But at B1, you're stepping into the world of authentic media. You are no longer just hunting for facts. You have to grasp opinions, you have to catch a subtle bit of sarcasm, and you have to interpret the unscripted, beautiful chaos of real English.
And that brings us to the biggest agitation you'll face, decoding connected speech.
Because of course, as soon as you try to listen to this authentic, unscripted English, you hit a massive wall. In textbooks, voice actors pause between every single word. They say, "What are you going to do?" But out in the wild, words bleed together into a blurry mess. "What are you going to do?" suddenly becomes, "What you gonna do?" And my absolute favorite, "Did you eat yet?" transforms into the almost completely unrecognizable and frankly kind of aggressive-sounding "jeet yet." Having your brain instantly map those real-world sounds back to textbook English is the true hurdle of B1 listening.
So how do we fix this? Let's dive into 5 advanced listening strategies that will completely change the game for you.
Strategy number 1 is podcast shadowing. Here's how it works. You listen to just 30 seconds of native audio. Then you pause it, and you repeat exactly what was said. But here is the secret sauce. You must mimic their intonation, their pauses, and their emotion. You aren't just translating vocabulary in your head anymore. You are physically embodying the rhythm of fluency. It's like building muscle memory for your mouth and your ears all at once.
Moving on to strategy 2. Look, instead of trying to frantically write down every single word of a fast-paced TED-Ed video, which guarantees you'll fall behind instantly, we're going to use an adapted Cornell note-taking framework. It's super simple. Map your keywords, names, and dates on the left, write short summary sentences of the arguments on the right, and then finally, distill the entire audio into one single sentence at the bottom. This trains your brain to filter out all that extra filler noise and lock onto the core signal of what's actually being said.
Now, strategy 3 is what we call the tolerance of ambiguity. And this is a really vital psychological skill. Listen, you are absolutely guaranteed to hear unknown words. It's going to happen. But if you pause the audio and open a dictionary every single time, you completely kill your momentum. Instead, you have to learn to embrace the unknown. Note the context, guess the meaning from the speaker's tone, and just keep moving forward. Fluency in listening requires forward momentum above all else.
Strategy 4 is all about diversing your accents. English is a global lingua franca, which means limiting yourself to just standard American or British accents will actually handicap your fluency out in the real world. You need to actively seek out diverse global accents. We're talking Australian, Scottish, Indian, South African, and even non-native fluent accents. Go watch some international street food vlogs or travel documentaries where the host interviews random locals. This forces your brain to build a highly flexible phonetic map, which is absolutely a cornerstone of true global fluency.
Finally, strategy 5 requires a very strict 50-50 split between passive background listening and highly focused, active transcript reading. Passive listening is like having a podcast playing while you wash the dishes, right? It's great for internalizing that subconscious rhythm, but honestly, it's just not enough on its own. Active listening means actually sitting down with a transcript. You listen once without reading, a second time while reading along, and a third time while physically highlighting new phrases.
You absolutely need both halves of this 50-50 split to finally cross that fluency bridge.
Okay, let's look at some modern tools for authentic audio.
I know transitioning to authentic media can feel incredibly overwhelming, but thankfully, you don't have to tackle it unassisted. Utilizing modern tools provides the perfect bridge between that slow textbook audio and crazy real-world conversations. For example, Language Reactor is a game changer for dual subtitles and auto-pausing. Your standard podcast apps are great because you can drop the speed down to 0.8x, which gives your brain those crucial extra milliseconds to process all that connected speech. You can even use AI transcription tools to read along and spot exactly what you missed.
The absolutely crucial point to remember is wrapped up beautifully in this thought. Listening at the B1 level is an act of endurance. You are training your brain to process a foreign language at the speed of thought. Pushing through this intermediate plateau isn't about being perfect right away. It's about endurance. It's about allowing your subconscious the sheer time it needs to build entirely new neural pathways. There will be days when you listen to a 10-minute video and feel like you understood literally nothing. And you know what? That is completely normal. That is just part of the process.
So whatever you do, do not quit. If you apply these strategies and use these tools, I promise you, the day will come when you suddenly comprehend an entire 15-minute native conversation without glancing at the subtitles even once. That is the moment you unlock authentic English fluency. So the next time you put your headphones on, ask yourself, are you just letting the English wash over you, or are you finally ready to actively train your brain to catch it?
Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're tuning into this, chances are you've hit that incredibly frustrating conversational plateau. You know the exact one I'm talking about. You've got the vocabulary locked away in your head, but the second you open your mouth, you feel like you're just reporting facts. Well, today we're going to tackle that head-on. We are going to figure out exactly how you can stop sounding like a polite robot and start expressing your true, vibrant personality in English by unlocking the 7 secrets of B1. Here's our roadmap for the B1 makeover. We'll be covering Section 1, the B1 speaking shift, Section 2, the 7 secrets, Section 3, common B1 speaking traps, and finally Section 4, claim your speaking space. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the B1 speaking shift, from reporting to expressing. So at the A2 level, you basically spoke just to report facts, kind of like a robot. You'd say things like, I went to the store, I bought milk, it was cold. And hey, it gets the job done, sure, but at B1, this is where you're finally speaking to express your inner world. You're sharing your opinions, you're debating ideas, telling engaging stories, hypothesizing about the future, and really explaining the why behind your actions. B1 is where your actual personality finally shines through that language barrier. Because at the end of the day, you're a human being with complex thoughts and feelings, not just a data reporter. Moving on to Section 2, the 7 secrets. Mastery techniques for B1. Technique number 1 is an absolute game changer. It's called the ORE framework. When someone asks for your opinion, you should never just say, I like it or I think it's bad. Instead, you can instantly sound logical and advanced by linking these 3 simple steps. Step 1, give your opinion. I think remote work is highly beneficial. Step 2, provide the reason. This is mainly because it eliminates the daily commute. And step 3, anchor it with a specific example. For instance, last year I used to spend 2 hours in traffic, but now I use that time to exercise. Boom, instantly B1 appropriate. That brings us to technique 2, which is hedging. Hedging just means softening your language. Why do we do this? Well, native speakers rarely state their personal opinions as absolute, undeniable facts. Instead, they use hedging to sound polite, measured, and completely open to a back-and-forth debate. So instead of using blunt, aggressive statements like, that is a terrible idea, or you are wrong, which, let's be honest, completely shut the other person down, you use hedged versions. You say something like, I'm not entirely sure that's the best approach, or I see your point, but I tend to look at it differently. Using these softening phrases is absolutely crucial for navigating professional and social situations smoothly without stepping on any toes. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, forgetting words. It is totally inevitable. You are going to forget words. Which brings us to technique 3, circumlocution. This is the art of the workaround. It's when you seamlessly describe the function, shape, or category of a forgotten word without ever breaking the flow of a conversation. A true B1 speaker doesn't pause and say, how do you say? No, they just talk right around it. Let's say you forgot the exact native word for umbrella. No panic. Just call it the thing you hold over your head when it rains. Can't remember the word vegetarian? It's simply someone who eats plants but doesn't eat meat. Forgot traffic jam? Just say, when there are too many cars on the road and nobody can move. I actually challenge you to practice this daily. Pick a random object in your room right now and try describing it aloud without naming it. It builds incredible mental flexibility. Our fourth technique relies on discourse markers. These phrases are literally the glue of spoken English. They organize your thoughts and act as turn signals for your listener. Need to start a thought? Use anyway, or to be honest. Adding a point? Throw in on top of that, or furthermore. Contrasting? Try having said that, or mind you. Seriously, sprinkling these specific markers into your speech will make your conversational fluency absolutely skyrocket. Okay, technique 5 is all about how you share your experiences using the story arc. When you're telling an anecdote about your weekend or maybe a past vacation, mix the past continuous and past simple tenses to build some drama. Step 1, set the scene with past continuous. We were driving up the coast. Step 2, hit them with the inciting incident using past simple. Suddenly, the car made a loud noise. Step 3 is your climax. We had to wait 2 hours for a tow truck. And step 4 is the resolution and your feeling. Eventually, we got home, but I was completely exhausted. Just using that structure instantly turns a boring update into a captivating story. Technique 6 requires us to get a little musical. Intonation for emotion. English is a highly melodic language, and your pitch literally changes everything. I'm going to act this out for you with just the word really. Notice how dynamic vocal shifts change the entire meaning. Number 1, genuine surprise. Really? Number 2, sarcastic disbelief. Really? Number 3, bored acknowledgement. Really? Number 4, delighted interest. Oh, really? And number 5, suspicious. Really? See what I mean? It's the exact same word, but completely different meanings just based on pitch. Try recording yourself and matching the intonation of actors in your favorite TV shows. A final secret, technique 7, is the shadow debating exercise. This is a brilliant practice hack. Go find a panel discussion or an online debate on a topic you like, maybe AI in education or city living. When someone makes a point, pause the video and argue out loud with your screen. Agree with them, disagree with them, use your ORE framework. This perfectly simulates the pressure of a real-time argument, but totally removes the anxiety of facing a real person. Now for section 3, common B1 speaking traps, what to avoid. Trap number 1 is the translation pause. This is when you catch yourself just staring off into space because you are trying to perfectly translate a highly complex B2 sentence from your native language into English. The fix here, simplify the thought. If you can't construct that complex sentence in your head instantly, just deliver 2 clear, straightforward B1 sentences instead. The ultimate goal is to maintain the conversation's rhythm, not to be a perfect human dictionary. Trap number 2 is relying way too much on a single word. Overusing very. Oh, it was very good, very interesting, very big. It's a habit we all fall into, but it sounds so basic. The fix here is to upgrade your vocabulary with punchy, descriptive B1 adjectives. Swap very good for exceptional. Very interesting becomes fascinating. Very big is massive, and very bad is dreadful. These words bring your stories to life instantly. And trap number 3 is monotone delivery. This happens when you're so hyper-focused on getting your grammar exactly right that your voice goes completely flat and you end up sounding like a computer. The fix here is actually physical. Exaggerate your facial expressions. Smile, raise your eyebrows, and use your hands while you speak. Physical movement naturally forces your vocal intonation to become much more dynamic and engaging. And that brings us to section 4. Claim your speaking space. The final shift. I want you to remember that B1 speaking is all about claiming your rightful space in the English-speaking world. You are no longer just answering questions when spoken to. You're initiating conversations. You're sharing your unique perspective. You are finally breaking through that language barrier to connect with others on a genuine human level. Always remember to embrace the mistakes. Laugh at the forgotten words. Your voice, with all its imperfections, is worth hearing. Do not let the fear of a small grammar slip keep you quiet. Use your hedging, use your circumlocution, and use your discourse markers to bridge those gaps. So my final provocative question for you is this. What topic are you going to shadow debate today to prove that your voice, with all its beautiful imperfections, is worth hearing? Go find a debate, hit pause, and start speaking. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely decode what is known as the B1 reading shift. Now, if you've been studying English for a while, you absolutely know what the beginner stages feel like. It's super focused on just simply translating literal words. You know the drill. You see a word, you find its translation in your head, and you move on. But there comes this absolutely crucial tipping point. Today, we're exploring how you move past that mechanical word-for-word translation into something much more fascinating, actually uncovering the author's hidden intentions. So, I want you to really ask yourself this. Are you just reading words on a page? Are you actually understanding the author's mind? At the beginner level, reading really is just a decoding exercise. But at the B1 level, it transforms into this amazing detective game of critical thinking. You're no longer just trying to figure out what the text literally says. You're stepping into the real world of authentic articles and opinion pieces, where you constantly have to ask yourself, why was this written? Who is this actually for? And what is the underlying tone here? Section 1. The shift beyond literal translation. To actually make this shift in practice, you need a totally new set of reading tools designed for modern materials. We're talking about the texts you consume every single day, Medium articles, Amazon reviews, or those massive social media threads. At this intermediate threshold, your whole goal shifts. You've got to be able to recognize emotional undertones in a personal email. When you're scrolling through news, you need to spot the difference between hard facts and a journalist's implied opinion. Or think about reading a software manual. You have to scan complex instructions for really specific conditional warnings, like knowing what to do if a light suddenly flashes red. You're mining for hidden details now, not just reading word by word. Section 2. The power of register. Why register changes meaning. Now let's dive into the core of our explainer. Let me ask you a question that might seem a bit obvious. Would you ever use slang in a formal job rejection? Probably not, right? Understanding register, whether a text is formal, like academic writing, or informal, like a chatty, slang-heavy text, is the ultimate key to mastering the B1 shift. Register isn't just some polite add-on, it fundamentally dictates and changes the underlying meaning of a text. Getting a grip on this is what prevents you from sounding like a literal robot in a text message to a friend or accidentally dropping slang in a super professional setting. To see how register changes meaning, take a formal rejection. We regret to inform you that your application has been unsuccessful. Notice that passive, objective language, no contractions, it creates this huge professional distance. Now contrast that with, hey, just wanted to let you know you didn't get the gig. Bummer. It conveys the exact same factual event, but that active, emotional phrasing and heavy slang completely change the relationship between the speaker and the listener. If you miss the register, you are literally missing the true message. Section 3. Decoding the hidden clues. Beyond just register, authors leave behind this whole trail of hidden clues, and unlocking them means you have to read like a detective rather than a dictionary. Strategy number 1 for this is what we call the contextual autopsy. Basically, when you hit an unknown word, do not immediately reach for your phone or dictionary. Resist the urge. Instead, examine the prefix, the suffix, and the surrounding words to figure out its meaning. Training this one specific skill saves you hours of dictionary time, but even better, it builds deep neural connections because it forces your brain to actively analyze those surrounding clues. Let's put that autopsy into practice right now. Imagine you're reading this sentence. The politician's speech was completely ambiguous, leaving voters confused about his actual stance on the economy. Okay, let's say you have absolutely no idea what ambiguous means. Honestly, it doesn't matter. The surrounding phrase right there, leaving voters confused, acts as your primary clue. It tells you exactly what the word means in this context, letting you figure it out without breaking your reading flow or reaching for a translation app. Strategy 2 is identifying signpost words. Writers use specific words to guide you instantly through their logic. Think of these as the skeleton of the author's argument. We have concession words like although or despite, which signal a contrast is right around the corner. We have addition words like moreover or furthermore, telling you their argument is getting stronger. And we have result words like consequently or therefore, signaling the conclusion of a thought. At the B1 level, you really must recognize these instantly. They act as a direct map for the writer's entire thought process. Another incredibly vital hidden clue is punctuation. You have to stop treating commas, semicolons, and dashes as just little decorations on the page. Instead, you need to start reading them like sheet music that dictates the rhythm and the logic of the sentence. A semicolon connects two closely related independent thoughts, showing you they belong together. A dash introduces this dramatic pause or a sudden explanation. If you just ignore these musical notes, you miss the nuance of the author's voice entirely. Section 4. Building better reading habits. Now, we have to address the common physical traps that keep people completely stuck at that beginner decoding level. The absolute biggest one is subvocalization. That's when you read out loud inside your head. The problem? It limits your reading speed to your speaking voice, making reading incredibly slow and honestly kind of exhausting. But you can fix this literally right now. Just use a finger or a pen to guide your eyes across the page. This simple trick forces your eyes to take in chunks of words, entire phrases, rather than individual syllables, and you'll move way faster than your inner voice can even speak. To build up that reading speed and trigger subconscious grammar acquisition, you need a daily mix of two different approaches. First, intensive reading. This is spending about 15 minutes a day dissecting a short, difficult text, like a dense news editorial. You look up words, you analyze grammar, you do those contextual autopsies we talked about. Then you balance it with extensive reading, spending 30+ minutes a day reading a long, easy text, maybe a thriller novel or a comic book, purely for pleasure. During this time, you never stop for unknown words. You just let the language flow. Finally, we have strategy 5, the summary translation. Here's how it works. After you read an article, just close the tab. Take out a piece of paper and write just 3 simple sentences in English. Step 1, what was the main topic? Step 2, what was the author's primary argument? And step 3, what is your personal opinion on the text? This is an incredibly powerful habit because it completely bridges that massive gap between passively consuming reading material and actively producing language. I really want to leave you with this idea. Reading at the B1 level is literally your passport to the English-speaking mind. Through reading this way, you naturally absorb the collocations, the complex grammar structures, and the deep cultural references that you simply will never, ever find in a traditional textbook. Every single article you read, every product review you scan, and every story you finish is a silent conversation with a native speaker. So read widely, read curiously. Let the language just wash over you. As you dive into your next article, as you decode its register and hunt for those hidden clues, I want you to ask yourself, are you just reading their words, or are you finally starting to read their mind? Once you unlock that door, what will you discover next?
Welcome to today's Explainer. We are embarking on a truly transformative journey today, the B1 writing shift. We're going to explore exactly how you move from stacking basic, isolated sentences together like single bricks to actually constructing highly professional, diplomatic text structures. So, if you want to communicate with clarity, flow, and purpose, let's dive right in.
But before we get to the mechanics of all this, I want you to ask yourself a question. Be honest. Have you ever sent an email, maybe you were just in a rush, only to realize later that it sounded accidentally rude, cold, or even a little bit aggressive? We have all been there. And the stakes of poorly chosen wording are incredibly high in the modern professional world. You see, when you speak in person, you have hand gestures, tone of voice, and a smile to kind of soften your words. But when you write, your words are completely on their own.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we get it wrong. The results can be disastrous. Take a look at the contrast here. If you send a highly formal email to a close friend, it sounds weirdly cold and distant, right? Like you're suddenly a robot. On the flip side, if you send a highly informal email to your boss or a super important client, it instantly sounds disrespectful. Mismatched tone is actually the single most common error at this B1 level. So knowing your audience isn't just a nice idea. It is absolutely vital to ensuring your message is received exactly the way you intended.
To help you fix these accidental tone mistakes, here is our toolkit and roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1, from sentences to structures. 2, the crucial tone check. 3, passive voice for diplomacy. 4, the linking word arsenal. And finally, number 5, the ear is your editor.
Section 1, from sentences to structures, becoming an architect of text.
At the beginner A2 level, writing is really just about survival. You're using short, choppy sentences to get basic points across. But at the B1 level, you are an architect of text. You need to start thinking in terms of cohesive paragraphs. And well, every great architect needs a blueprint. A strong B1 paragraph takes 3 strict logical steps. Step 1 is the topic sentence. Your very first sentence literally has to state the main idea clearly, no mysteries. Step 2 is the supporting sentences. This is usually 2 to 3 sentences providing reasons, facts, or examples to back up that first point. And finally, step 3 is the concluding sentence, which elegantly wraps up the thought or transitions nicely into your next paragraph. Once you master this architecture, your writing instantly levels up.
Now, you might be wondering, where will I actually use this? Well, look at these modern, real-world tasks. The LinkedIn post sharing some professional insights, a balanced Airbnb or restaurant review, that polite out-of-office auto-reply you set for your vacation. Heck, even a group chat itinerary to organize a weekend trip with your friends. All of these everyday tasks heavily utilize that structured architectural approach to be effective and clear.
Moving on to Section 2, the crucial tone check, knowing your audience.
Now that you have the structure down, before your finger ever gets close to that send button, you must pause for a mandatory tone check. Who exactly is reading this? Here are the contrasting rules you really need to follow to prevent a total tone mismatch. When writing to a friend, go ahead and use contractions like I'm or can't. Throw in exclamation marks, use informal, breezy vocabulary. It's casual. But look at the rules for a boss or client. You need to avoid contractions entirely. Write out I am or cannot. You absolutely must use formal greetings. And, crucially, you should employ the passive voice to sound far more objective and professional.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, passive voice for diplomacy, the ultimate professional tool.
Okay, let's really dive into this because this is the absolute climax of our explainer. In professional writing, the passive voice is not just some boring grammar rule from a textbook. It is, without a doubt, your ultimate tool for politeness and diplomacy. Imagine you have to write a complaint email to a hotel. We have the active voice approach. Your cleaner stole our watch. I mean, it's direct, sure, but it is highly aggressive. It's an attack. Now look at the passive voice approach. Unfortunately, my watch seems to have been removed from the room during cleaning. Wow, do you hear the difference there? It is night and day.
So, the crucial point is this. The passive voice removes direct blame. By shifting the grammatical structure away from who did the bad thing over to what happened, you instantly neutralize the conflict. You take the heat out of the room. The hotel manager reading that second sentence doesn't feel instantly defensive. Instead, they feel a professional obligation to step up and help you. It is a brilliant, subtle diplomatic maneuver that works like magic.
Let's look at Section 4, the linking word arsenal, upgrading your connectors.
Okay, so you have a great architectural structure and you've nailed a diplomatic tone using the passive voice. But now, you need a smooth flow between all those new sentences. You need to upgrade your connectors. I want you to treat this table as your high-value cheat sheet. If you want to sound like a seasoned professional, you have to stop relying exclusively on simple words like but, and, so, and because. Look at the upgrades we have here. Instead of but, try dropping in a however or nevertheless. Instead of just saying and, use moreover or furthermore. Swap out so for therefore or consequently, and replace because with since or due to the fact that. I challenge you to keep this list right next to your keyboard and force yourself to use at least 3 of these upgraded connectors in the very next professional email you send.
And finally, Section 5. The ear is your editor, editing and refining. Writing the draft is really only half the battle. The other half is editing and refining. And this brings us to the famous read-aloud technique. Here is a little secret about the human brain. When you read your own work silently, your eyes will actually skip right over missing words and bad grammar. Your brain just fills in the gaps because it already knows what you meant to say. But your ears will not let you get away with it. After writing a paragraph, read it out loud. If you stumble, the sentence is too long or poorly structured. If you run out of breath, you desperately need a period. And if it sounds incredibly robotic, you need to vary your vocabulary. The fact is, your ear really is your ultimate editor for structure and flow.
Another fantastic practical technique is to keep a digital swipe file. Whenever you read a beautifully written email, a clever LinkedIn post, or a really great diplomatic paragraph, simply copy and paste it into a document. Seriously, professional writers do this constantly. It's like a library of inspiration. Then, when you need to write something similar later on, just open the file, analyze the structure that works so well, and adapt it for your own use. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you sit down to write.
Let's rapidly review a few common mistakes you'll want to watch out for as you edit. First up, run-on sentences. You know the ones, connecting 4 completely different ideas with commas and the word and. The fix is simple, 1 idea per sentence. If it's taking up more than 3 lines on your screen, break it in half. Next, literal translation of idioms. Please, don't write "it rained jugs" just because it works in your native language. Stick to standard English collocations until you are entirely sure what a specific idiom means. Finally, overcomplicating things. Don't go digging into a thesaurus just to find massive, confusing words. Saying the company made a big profit is actually much better than the corporation generated a monumental fiscal surplus. Clarity always trumps big words.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this absolutely fantastic quote from our source material. B1 writing is where you learn to dress your thoughts in the proper clothing, ensuring they are received exactly as you intended. I just love that analogy. Remember, when you're writing, you don't have facial expressions, tone, or hand gestures to rely on. Your written words must stand entirely on their own 2 feet, representing you out there in the real world.
So, what does this all mean for you right now? I will leave you with this final thought to ponder. Next time you open your outbox, take a look at your recent emails. Are you dressing your thoughts appropriately for your specific audience? Or is your aggressive use of the active voice accidentally making enemies out of your colleagues and clients? Try applying this passive voice strategy to your professional toolkit starting today, and just watch how much smoother your communications become. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy writing.
Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, if you're learning English, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That frustrating wall where you just feel stuck, like you can't quite express your deeper, more complex thoughts. Think of it like this. Moving up to B1 English is literally like upgrading from painting with just 3 basic primary colors to unlocking a master palette of 50 distinct, beautiful shades. And today, we're going to figure out exactly how to unlock that palette. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover the B1 vocabulary shift, the building blocks of B1, our main focus, the 5 core strategies, followed by B1 topic banks, and finally, we'll look at some common vocabulary traps. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the B1 vocabulary shift. We really need to address that feeling of being stranded on the intermediate plateau. There is this absolutely fascinating paradigm shift that happens right at this stage. See, at the A1 and A2 levels, your vocabulary is almost entirely concrete. It's physical. You're basically just naming the physical world right in front of you. Words like apple, car, run, happy. But at B1, your brain gets challenged to step it up. You have to start analyzing the abstract and the emotional world. You're learning concepts you literally cannot touch. So you're moving from just saying someone is happy to understanding how a situation is nuanced, from the physical act of a run to grasping a complex idea like consequence or freedom. You stop just naming the world and you actually start analyzing it. Okay, section 2, building blocks of B1. Now that we understand the shift, let's look at the specific building blocks you need to construct this new level of fluency. At the B1 threshold, you've got to make a major change. You have to fundamentally stop learning isolated single words. It just doesn't work anymore. Your active vocabulary needs to include abstract nouns now, like freedom and inequality. You need nuanced adjectives. So moving way past simply saying things are good or bad and upgrading to precise words like beneficial or detrimental. You'll also start picking up professional and academic vocabulary that you'd use in an office, like implement and strategy. But honestly, the real game changer here? You start mastering phrasal verbs and collocations. These are the vocabulary chunks that create true native fluency. Which leads us perfectly into section 3, the 5 core strategies. This is the absolute core of our explainer today. We're looking at 5 essential strategies to actually build, and more importantly, lock in this advanced B1 vocabulary. We're going to walk through these step by step. Step 1 is collocations, step 2 is phrasal verbs, step 3 is word formation, step 4 is connotation versus denotation, and step 5 is context mining. Let's kick things off with strategy 1. Strategy 1 is all about mastering the art of collocations. Look, native speakers do not assemble sentences word by single word. No way. They assemble them chunk by chunk. And that brings us to collocations, which are basically just words that naturally marry each other. They just sound right together. Let me give you an example. If you learn the noun decision, you can't just translate it directly from your native language and pair it with whatever verb you want. It doesn't work like that. A great habit is, whenever you write down a new noun, you must write down its mandatory verb right next to it. So you memorize that in English, the mandatory verb for decision is make, not do. You make a decision. You conduct or do research. You pay attention. You don't give attention. Your action step here is super simple. Whenever you learn a new noun, immediately learn the verb that naturally belongs with it. All right, let's dive into strategy 2, conquer the phrasal verb mountain. Phrasal verbs are constantly cited as the absolute biggest barrier to B1. And here's why. Instead of using formal Latin-based verbs like continue, discover, or tolerate, conversational reality demands that we say things like keep on, find out, and put up with. To sound natural, to sound like a real person, this is the mountain we simply have to climb. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret for strategy 2. Please do not try to memorize a random list of 100 phrasal verbs. It just won't work. Your brain will reject it. Instead, you need to learn them grouped by specific contexts or topics. Take morning routines, for instance. We have wake up, get up, put on, head out, drop off. See how they naturally form a story? You can do the exact same thing for a topic like business meetings, using verbs like wrap up or follow up. Context is quite literally the only way these tricky little verbs will ever stick in your memory. Moving right along to strategy 3, word formation. By learning how to manipulate word roots using prefixes and suffixes, you essentially become an exponential vocabulary generator. Take the root word act. With a few tweaks, you can instantly create the noun action, the adjective active, or the adverb actively. And when you finally master prefixes like un, re, dis, over, and miss, it is like learning a magic math formula for language. For instance, if you already know the word estimate, and you know the prefix under means not enough, boom, you instantly know the word underestimate without ever looking at a dictionary. Okay, moving to strategy 4, connotation versus denotation. Here, we really have to look beyond a word's strict dictionary definition and ask ourselves what kind of emotional baggage it's carrying around. Because believe me, words have baggage. Denotation is just the literal dictionary definition, but connotation, that's the emotional weight. So when you learn a new word at the B1 level, you always need to stop and ask, is this word positive, negative, or completely neutral? It is fascinating to see how connotation actually plays out in real conversations. Take the words slim, thin, and skinny. Their denotation is totally identical. All three words simply mean having low body fat. But their connotation, it completely shifts how they feel to the listener. Slim is positive. It sounds attractive. Thin is just a neutral objective fact. But skinny actually carries a negative connotation. It implies someone is weak or maybe unhealthy. At the B1 level, using skinny instead of slim could accidentally insult someone. And that right there proves why understanding connotation is absolutely critical. Finally, strategy 5. This one demands that you stop using flashcards with single, isolated words on them. Why? Because human brains remember stories. We do not remember lists. And this brings us to what we call the context mining technique. So here is exactly how context mining works in practice. When you find an awesome new word, like inevitable, don't just write down a synonym like unavoidable. That's the old way. First, write down the full original sentence where you found the word. Something like, with the dark clouds gathering, the rain was inevitable. Then, and this is the crucial part, write a sentence about your own life using that word. Like, when I procrastinate until midnight, feeling tired the next day is inevitable. Personalizing the context is the absolute key to locking that word securely into your long-term memory. All right, section 4, B1 topic banks. Let's see where you can actually put this vocabulary into action across different real-world topics. It is pretty amazing to watch how your vocabulary matures at this stage. Instead of the basics, we're moving on to words like sustainability for the environment, algorithm or artificial intelligence for technology, diversity and globalization for society, and empathy or resilience for emotions. You're no longer just ordering food at a restaurant or making small talk about the weather. You're actually equipping yourself to discuss complex societal trends, major environmental issues, and deep emotional psychology. Okay, section 5, common vocabulary traps. We definitely need to look at a few mistakes you should avoid so they don't completely derail your progress as you're building up this beautiful advanced vocabulary. The most notorious trap by far is what we call false friends. These are words that look almost identical to words in your native language, and it's a big but, they carry a completely different and honestly sometimes very embarrassing meaning in English. For example, the English word actually means in fact. It absolutely does not mean currently or now. Or take the word sensible. In English, this means practical. It does not mean sensitive or highly emotional. So how do we fix this? Well, the immediate rule of thumb to avoid falling for these false friends is to always verify the English to English definition. Please don't rely solely on basic translation apps. Actually read the dictionary definition in English to make absolutely sure the word means what you think it means. Now, another major B1 trap is overusing the word very. We all do it. It's a super common crutch. But you can fix this instantly by upgrading to strong, precise adjectives. So instead of telling someone you were very tired, say you were exhausted. Instead of saying a movie was very funny, call it hilarious. Instead of very important, use the word critical. Doing this instantly elevates your speaking level. It's a real game changer. Ultimately, as this quote beautifully reminds us, the B1 vocabulary shift is all about precision. It is the difference between painting with 3 primary colors and painting with a palette of 50 distinct shades. It's about collecting words like little treasures so you can express exactly what you mean with the exact emotional weight you intend. You are finally leaving those basic primary colors behind and unlocking all those beautiful, nuanced shades. So now that you have these 5 core strategies to upgrade your linguistic palette, from mining context to mastering collocations, I really have to ask, which new shades will you add to your English palette today? What new words will you start context mining today to paint your reality in English? Take these strategies, examine some new words, test them out in the real world, and above all, have fun expanding your vocabulary.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are tackling a massive, honestly incredibly exciting level up in your language journey, the B1 grammar shift. You know, if you've been feeling kind of stuck in the basics, trying to express these big, complex thoughts but just constantly hitting a wall, well, you have arrived at exactly the right place. Today, we're not just looking at some dusty list of rules. No way. We're going to unlock your new superpowers.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about it like this. At the A1 and A2 levels, you were just building the foundation, right? You learn how to survive, how to order a cup of coffee, how to ask for directions to the train station. But B1 is the plumbing, the electricity, the architecture. It's the stuff that takes you from just basic survival English to actually living comfortably and fully in the language.
And the reason is, grammar at this level grants you entirely new abilities. You literally step out of the present moment. Think about it. You can suddenly time travel to analyze the past and predict the future. You can engage in this deep hypothetical thinking to imagine wild, alternate realities, and you get the nuanced expression required to accurately report the words and feelings of other people. You stop just surviving, and you finally start truly expressing yourself. So, let's see how this builds into our main framework. We've got 6 pillars. But please, don't think of these as boring textbook rules. Think of them as vital new tools in your toolkit. Or, actually, better yet, think of them as 6 boss battles you need to conquer to reach true language independence. Because once you defeat these bosses, the entire map opens up to you.
All right, our very first boss battle is the ultimate B1 hurdle. Consider the past simple. I lived in London in 2019. The time period is completely finished. The door to the past is securely closed. But then we have the present perfect. I have lived in London. This is an open door. It's an action or an experience that continues right into your present reality, or at least has a visible result right now. Internalizing this open versus closed door concept, it completely changes everything.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how conditionals unlock your imagination. The first conditional deals with a highly possible, real future. It's simple, cause and effect, right? If it rains tomorrow, I will cancel. Highly logical. But the second conditional, if I won the lottery, now that is where you transition into dreaming up completely imaginary, hypothetical realities. You are literally bending reality with your words. How cool is that?
Next up, we have modals of deduction. Look, at the B1 level, you really need to stop overusing the phrase, I think. Instead, you get to start analyzing situations like a detective. If you're 99% sure someone is tired, you confidently say, he must be exhausted. If you're only, say, 50% sure, he might be in traffic. And if it's 99% impossible, you say, that can't be the boss. Using these varying degrees of certainty instantly makes you sound highly analytical and, honestly, way more fluent.
Moving on, our fourth pillar is the passive voice. And this one is all about shifting the spotlight. The active voice puts the spotlight directly on who did the action, like Edison invented the light bulb. But by saying, the light bulb was invented by Edison, that spotlight abruptly shifts to what received the action. When you utilize the passive voice, you instantly elevate your formal English. It makes you sound far more objective, diplomatic, and professional, especially in a workplace setting.
Pillar 5 brings us to reported speech. When you tell a story, you rarely quote people exactly, right? You report what they said. And this requires a subtle little backshift in time. The present simple shifts backward to the past simple. So, I like coffee transforms into, he said he liked coffee. Mastering this backshift is absolutely your ultimate tool for workplace communication, summarizing interviews, and, well, let's be honest, gossiping effectively with your friends. And our final boss battle involves gerunds versus infinitives.
The difference here is incredibly dramatic. Choosing the infinitive, stop to smoke, means you pause whatever you are currently doing in order to go have a cigarette. But choosing the gerund, stop smoking, means you quit the terrible habit forever. Just one little grammar choice completely changes the reality of the sentence. So pattern recognition here is absolutely essential.
Okay, so now that we've mapped out those 6 pillars, we have to talk about how to actually learn them. Because recognizing these tools is one thing, but internalizing them, making them an automatic reflex in your brain, that's another game entirely. You absolutely cannot do this by just memorizing dry tables in a textbook. We need an actionable methodology. Basically, we need the cheat codes. These 3 concrete steps are your ultimate cheat codes for locking B1 grammar into your long-term memory so you can pull it out effortlessly in daily conversation. We have the personalization rule, the noticing habit, and grammar in context. Let's break down exactly how to aggressively apply each of these, starting today.
Step 1 is the personalization rule. Here is a hard truth about human psychology. Your brain really only cares about personal stakes. It does not care if textbook John has gone to the store. It just doesn't. So, if you are practicing the present perfect, write about the sushi you have actually eaten. Write about the countries you have visited. Tie the grammar directly to your real memories, your real life, and I promise you, the structure will stick permanently. Step 2 is the noticing habit. You need to start actively hunting for these structures out in the wild. When you're watching your favorite Netflix show and a character uses a conditional, pause it, acknowledge it. By consciously pausing to recognize these structures in native media, you are actively priming your brain to use them later for real-world fluency. It's like you're training your brain to see the code behind the matrix.
Step 3 is grammar in context. I really need you to ditch the multiple choice tests. Grinding through 50 multiple choice questions where you just pick A, B, or C is not going to make you fluent. Production is the ultimate test of comprehension. So challenge yourself right now. Write a real email to a friend applying the first conditional. Write a diary entry using the past continuous. Put it into actual, messy, real-world context.
Now, as you practice producing these structures, you're definitely going to encounter some traps. So let's do a quick fire round. I'm going to show you how to rapidly dodge the most common grammar pitfalls that keep otherwise incredibly smart learners frustratingly stuck at the A2 level. Let's dive right into the first trap.
Let's look at trap number 1. Saying I am knowing him is a massive mistake. Stative verbs, verbs related to thoughts, emotions, and states of being, like know, like, or believe, they reject continuous tenses. You literally cannot be knowing someone. You absolutely must use the present perfect here. I have known him for 5 years. Make sure to lock that one into your memory.
Here is trap number 2, and it is a very strict rule for the first conditional. The word will can never, ever sit immediately next to the word if. It just doesn't happen. The if clause takes the present tense. If I see him, I will tell him. Keep your will safely in the second half of the sentence, far, far away from the if.
Moving on to trap number 3, dealing with reported speech. Saying, he said me that is incredibly common, but it's completely incorrect. The crucial point here is that the word said refuses to take a direct object pronoun like me right after it. You have 2 elegant choices to fix this. You either use he told me that, or you just drop the pronoun entirely and use he said that. And here's our final quick fire trap. I look forward to hear from you. You see the word to and naturally assume it's part of an infinitive verb, right? Wrong. The to in this specific phrase is actually a sneaky preposition, and prepositions absolutely demand a gerund, that ing form right behind them. So it must always, always be, I look forward to hearing from you.
Dodging those traps and mastering those 6 pillars brings us to the absolute most exciting part of the B1 shift. You aren't just memorizing rules to pass the test anymore. You are building the bridge to true linguistic independence. Mastering these tools means you will eventually get to play with the language, bend the rules, and express your unique personality exactly like a native speaker does.
Remember, grammar is the invisible current that carries your ideas across the ocean of communication. At the B1 level, you are no longer fighting that current. Stop fighting it. Embrace these complex structures because they aren't obstacles. They're the very tools that will allow you to express the full, beautiful complexity of your human experience in a completely new language.
Which leaves us with just one final thought. You've seen the pillars, you have the cheat codes to actually internalize them, and you know exactly how to dodge the traps. You have officially reached the threshold of language independence.
The door is standing wide open. So, the only question left is, are you ready to step through and claim your B1 powers? Let's get to work.